It's iipcareers.com. Again, as Mohan had said, the backbone of this is the gigantic Excel spreadsheet, which I provided in the public domain at the CIIM 2025 Dwyer lecture as part of my talk, really focusing on the human resources part of imaging informatics and the skill sets and the job and career paths. So this is what it looks like when you come to the page. The first thing I want to point out is there's information. This little arrow here indicates we can scroll down before we dive into the use of it. And this basically helps you understand the intent or what the purpose of that career tool is in terms of defining your foundation and assessing your own skills or assessing the skills of someone on your team if you're a team leader manager. And then also mapping your growth to new career potentials and skill sets required for those different roles. Also, we've got an ability, of course, to use generative AI to take the content based on your specific interests and generate things like a career development plan or skill testing questions for specific roles. And then references to things like the American Board of Imaging Informatics test content outline, which helps you understand what the Certified Imaging Informatics or Professional or CIIP exam basically covers, as well as the textbook, the Practical Imaging Informatics textbook, second edition, and references which chapters if you want to do more reading on each of those areas. A few things on the important information, the caveats. This is something I developed. I had a number of experts provide some input into it, but your organization will vary. If you're in, say, an outpatient imaging center, you'll have different jobs and descriptions than, say, a large private reading group practice or academic hospital, or if you're somebody who's working both in RIS and PACS or just PACS, that kind of thing. So you should read it, but also consider not it as an absolute authoritative, but more as an input, a logical input. It is licensed under the Creative Commons, which is extremely open. It's provided as is with no warranty. Anybody can use it without any charge. It's basically owned by all of us. And there's a number of people who really helped out in the development of this, and I'm eternally grateful for that. So let's dive in and take a look at the tool. So when we start with the role skills, you'll be presented with basically a drop-down. This is basically titles for different jobs that are common in our industry. Now, at your organization, maybe it's not called imaging analyst, maybe it's called business analyst, and maybe clinical engineering might be called biomed. So different roles and different job titles will occur. And also we have made some decisions like breaking imaging analysts into 2 tiers. At your institution, it might be 3 tiers. So you might have to adjust some of these things. But in here, the purpose of this is really to set a baseline of some of the common, again, not absolute authoritative, but some of the common skill sets required and organized into knowledge domains, of which there are 4. The technical domain, the clinical domain, operational, and then finally leadership and management. And within each of those, there are categories. Different roles will have different categories. So for example, if a role had no HL7 requirements, this card, as it's kind of presented here, would not appear. But if there is some expected within that role, again, this is a PACS administrator, we can click on here and you can see that they're expected to know what we've defined as level 1 knowledge of HL7. And how we've organized that content is into what you need to know. For example, the syntax and structure of version 2 messages, and it goes into more detail, as well as what you should be able to do. So communicating the required HL7 message types for interface message type for systems. And then, as I mentioned below, we have some external references. So to the ABII test content outline, which section this knowledge area applies to, and it's hierarchically organized by numbers and letters, and also the chapters in the Practical Imaging Informatics reference. So if I was interested in this role or interested in this domain, I can go to these areas to learn more.